So maybe we can just get started with introducing ourselves, and then we'll see if others trickle in. But I'd love to get the discussion started if you are all ready. So I'll introduce myself, and then maybe we'll do just some quick introductions, and I'll leave Daniela you for last so that you can go into more depth. But I am, can everyone hear me first? Yes. Okay, great. So I am Joanna. I'm based in the Ashoka Arab World office. I'm currently the Partnership and Communication Officer, and I've been with Ashoka for about a year and in Egypt for 3 years. The topic we're going to be talking about today is particularly interesting to me because I've been working quite closely with our regional director, Dr. Mendibars, on the Women's Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship. And so I think this is really quite resonant with a lot of the discussions we've been having here in the office and about launching globally. As part of the Women's Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship, we've started the ChangemakHERS online community, which I've spoken to Daniela about, and Morgan I know I spoke with you about it at quite an early stage. We're slowly growing, but one of the things that has been successful are these monthly huddles that we've started. And I've called them ChangemakHERS huddles, building solutions. And the idea is that we'll bring together different people in the Ashoka network and each month highlight one fellow's voice, let them tell their story and invite discussion around a challenge that might be of interest to them or something that they're facing in their own work or life as a social entrepreneur. So I'm really excited that you all joined. I'm hoping others joined too. There were people that RSVP'd, so we'll see. But I'd still love to get started. So maybe Selma, do you want to go next? She's also in the Arab world.
Yeah, I was like going after you, so I go like, yeah, I do everything that Joanna does. We work together, basically, to make it short. But yeah, I work as research and fundraising assistant, and yeah, Joanna and I work in the same office and the same team. And the main thing
you're cutting out, Selma.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this any better? Hello?
It may just be me. I'm getting a message. I'm going to turn off my video since I'm getting a message.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Everyone else hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, my title is Research and Fundraising Assistant, and we work in the same office. So I've been working in Ashoka for 8 months now. My main role was AUSIF, the Arab World Social Innovation Forum that we had back in March, and Morgan joined us for this. But now after AUSIF, I've been working on a lot of like WISE outreach and and research, and the ChangemakHERS platform as well. And yeah, I'm been really enjoying the huddles so far. Really happy that we've had a lot of engagement from fellows and also other people in the Ashoka network. Yeah, really excited for today with Daniela. So maybe I can hand it over to Morgan to introduce yourself. I don't think we can hear you, Morgan. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Dixon, and I'm coming from the US. And I run a health nonprofit called Girl Trek. And we were introduced to this initiative. How are we introduced to this initiative? Who knows? It's been like 2 or 3 years. Oh, I remember we were in Italy together. We and a few of us started talking about this. So have been there really from ground zero, and I'm super excited to be of whatever support I can be. So just let me know, and happy to empower women around the world. So we're excited to do that.
Great, thank you so much, Morgan. Maybe Lexi, you can go next.
Yeah, hi. This is Lexi. I'm from Ashoka, Romania. I've been with Ashoka for a year already, and I will be half a year more starting now. What I do is basically I was a trainee for a year, and right now I'm gonna do communications, and I'm gonna be in charge of mapping women change makers across the world, basically starting with our Ashoka fellows and going on further with that. I think that's my the main thing I do, and it's related with the call. And except for that, I think it's a really interesting topic, and I couldn't miss the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I think we can go to Garukim. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Hi. No, you pronounce it beautifully. It's like without K.
Okay.
I'm the first
like
part.
introduce
Am I
yourself?
supposed to do just introduction of myself?
Yes. Yeah. Who are you? What are you working as? Yeah. Just
Okay. I'm Garu Kim, based in DC Global Office, working at the planning and budgeting team. So working on the budgeting of our global offices and the teams, and also 50% of my time is dedicated to the East Asia Diamond, which covers currently South Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong.
great. Thank you very much. There's also Lucy, Lucy Perkins. Would you like to introduce yourself, please? Thank you. Hello? I don't think we can hear you, Lucy, or I definitely can't. You seem to be unmuted, but there's no audio. Nothing.
Sure.
Oh, was that Ilana? She said give me a minute.
Give me a minute, yes.
Okay.
A quick note, Lexi, I'm really excited about the mapping you're doing, and I would love to hear more later on if you'd like to connect at another time, just because we're working on WISE. I know that we'd be really interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, sure.
To get started, before I hand it over to Daniela, who will be introducing herself in more depth and sharing her work and introducing the challenge we want to discuss today. Just a note that this is the third ChangemakHERS Building Solutions huddle, and then we have more scheduled, one for next month and one in September. And we'd love for you to both join the ChangemakHERS online community, share it with other fellows, other members of the network, and keep joining us for these discussions. So now I'll hand it over to Daniela. Would you like to introduce yourself and then get started with the topic?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you all for coming to this huddle, and thank you for organizing it. Well, I'm really glad to be able to discuss this with many ChangemakHERS, because I guess it's very important to discuss this topic and help each other to improve it. First of all, I'm Daniela Valdivia. I'm from Bolivia. I work currently in a non-profit organization that I founded like 5 years ago. Well, I'm a lawyer, but I've studied peace and conflict transformation in Switzerland and security development and international conflict transformation in Austria. Well, I am very well involved with issues that has to do with justice, administration. Well, now currently we work with violence prevention, gender-based violence prevention projects. Yeah, well, what I can say about myself now, so you can understand why I'm worried and my concerns about this topic is, first of all, well, since I'm a child, it has been very hard for me to get into many things or to achieve things. It has been harder for me than to my brother, for instance. So I've realized in Bolivia in general, it's very tough if you are a girl to become a leader, to access good education. Well, Bolivia is not that bad, I would say. Like there are much more other countries where things can be worse, but still I've realized I have to struggle my whole life to achieve what I have achieved. And I realized the last 25 years, at least in Bolivia and in the world, things have changed. And I can say things for women have improved. We have laws, we have structures, we have different norms, we have different international institutions that advocate for women's rights. But still, I see that those structures and those laws have been made by men, or those structures, institutions are being led by men. So things, maybe we are working towards this improvement and gender equality, but those steps are, to me, bad steps, because we are not achieving what we want to achieve as women. And still, if we have the structures and the norms and the institutions that are there to advocate for women, to foster women education, to promote women's rights, it's still hard, because we have male chefs or male CEOs, male mindset behind all that. So that's the topic that I would like to discuss with you guys today. And that's a little bit of my connection to the topic, because now that I'm an activist, I'm a Ashoka fellow since June 2018, so last year, almost, well, now it's a year. But still, that I feel that I belong to this huge network where I can get a lot and I can learn a lot. Now I have like more, I feel stronger than before, and I work as an activist, yeah, precisely that, on gender-based violence issues. And we've achieved a law here, a local law, as civil society, to improve situation of women here in Cochabamba, because situation in Cochabamba is the worst in the whole country. Bolivia is one of the first countries in gender-based violence, and we are the first city in femicides in my country. So I have the feeling we are improving, and now I feel much stronger because I belong to this huge network. I have much more experience. I've been working in Terrorism Schweiz, which is Terrorism, a huge organization for aid intervention in Switzerland, but still I feel it's lacking this part of the chain. I don't know if you guys connect with my concern, and I hope I can hear as well experiences from all of you, from the place you are working, from the place you are developing your projects. I would like to hear about your experience related to this topic.
Does anyone have any immediate reactions, or like Daniela was saying, any kind of experiences that come to mind?
I personally definitely can relate to this, Daniela. I grew up in Cairo in Egypt, and I can really see what you're talking about in Bolivia, exactly happening here. Even though things have been that, people have been calling for women to be more in positions of leadership and being CEOs and all that, but as it stands, I would say less than, very, very few, I don't know about statistics, but very, very few women actually hold positions of leadership. And this is why, as you say, exactly this male mindset, or this sort of male method of leadership is sort of propagated, and it still is in the structure. And I think also this relates to Janet's discussion last time about how different leadership, whether it's more horizontal or more, this would be one example of how the man dominated leadership styles would be versus how women would be thinking. So whether it's more hierarchical and not competitive, but more hierarchical versus it's more horizontal. And I think, yeah, definitely relate to that. I wonder if Lucy has fixed her sounds. Maybe introduce yourself. Don't think. But yeah, if anyone else would like to add to that. Otherwise, I'll leave it to you, Daniela.
Well, just to give an example, maybe, and this can raise more examples around. For instance, we have here in Bolivia, the government has created a particular sector in the police for attending those gender-based violence cases. So this is to advocate for women. They make the whole investigation of these criminal cases against women, but it's led by a man. I guess it's a colonel or a mayor, but well, so when you go and talk to him, because we as institution, we are part of a network of institutions against violence or gender-based violence. So we have monthly those meetings where we talk about our improvements, or what's hindering us, and so we go and meet with him, and it's just very hard to understand what he wants, or that he understands what we want. Because women, we look at things differently. We know what we need. We know what's working for us, what's working, what's not working, because we have a different mindset. We have different needs. So it has been created, I guess, 6 years ago now. And it has been always led by men. So it is, for me, like, the institution is there, the norm is there, the whole structure is there, the resources are being there, we can use them, but still it's not working, because the leadership is, well, it's handled by a man. I don't know how it's been mishandled. I don't know how can I express this word, but I have the feeling it doesn't make any sense that we have a specific police sector for that if it's still the same mindset behind chauvinism and this male structure. I don't know how can I express my concern about this particular institution, but we have a lot of them. So this is an example which is happening in Bolivia, and I don't know if you guys have another example in your countries, or if you can. It can also be not specifically a state institution, but it can also be a private institution, or an NGO that advocates for women that is led by men, which makes things harder.
Is there anyone that might have an experience or an example that comes to their mind? Well, one question I'm wondering is, I guess, what do you identify as the reason that there are men still? What when you're thinking about this challenge, in your context, maybe specifically, or if you want to think more globally, whatever comes to mind, I guess. But what is the root cause for you that these institutions, even though they're in place, are still being led by either a man or male-dominated forms, like male forms of leadership? Is it because whoever's putting people into these positions are men, or does it come from another? I'm just curious what you think that kind of root cause is from your perspective. Or, like, for example, in the police section, that's an interesting example, and I'd be curious, what is the diversity, or what is the kind of makeup of the rest of the section in that institution? Is it also kind of male dominated? Who put that person into power? Who created the section in the first place? Could you elaborate a bit more? I'd be curious to learn.
Well, in this particular example, is the executive power of the state, meaning the government, who puts this position, right? So we have our president and vice president are men, and they have the power to select the person who will be occupying those hierarchical positions. So it starts from there. I would say it departs from the whole structure, the whole national structure, because we have a law, and it's very interesting, where it should be alternate, a man and a woman in authority position, or as well in the parliament, but no one accomplishes it. So we have mainly the whole hierarchical positions are occupied by men, so they can put other men in different positions. And on the other hand, the laws are just copied. For instance, our law is very similar to the Colombian one, and it has been launched in 2013. So there are no women participating in these making position spaces. And that's one of the main problems. And I would say this one reason can be that women are not very well educated, at least in my country. So they don't dare to apply for those positions, or those positions are not open to apply. The other cause can be women are used to it. They naturalize that hierarchical positions are for women, for men. The women reach certain level of education or career, and then they stop there because they need to raise their kids. So it's, I would say, it's a whole structural, cultural, and social issue. But my concern is now put on the table today, because I would like to know if, I mean, I'm not hearing that you guys have gone through these issues from their own positions, or from your own positions. So I would like to know, how is it in your country? How is it in your city? How is it in your region? If it's not like that, so I would really like to know, why is it? Like, why is it happening in Latin America and not in other places from the world? And that's something I'm very curious about, because I don't hear any example, or I don't hear an experience like mine. So I would like to hear the other side of the coin. I would like to hear if things are working well in your country. I would like to learn about it. And I would like to know, why do you think, is it working there on your side and not working here?
Does anyone, I mean, I think that, for example, I don't want to speak, Selma, you can probably speak more about Egypt than I can, but from my experience here, I definitely think it's quite similar, like you've already kind of pointed out, especially since the government is directly tied to the military, and there aren't women, correct, in the military, so then it's everything kind of stems from that issue, which I'm curious if that's been, I think it's both things. It's like you were saying, Daniela, it's not just one, there's no one cause, but it seems to be what I've seen in most of the leadership positions in legal institutions here and political institutions here are definitely majority male dominated. And there was, for example, I know kind of like a women's government that was created recently that was sort of this, it was I think meant to be kind of, oh, this is our form of acknowledging women in powership and leadership here in the government, but it sort of acted as this kind of shadow government that wasn't really empowered to make decisions. So that was one interesting step that I'm not quite sure how it resonated with other people here, but it was one of those examples of, okay, let's create an institution to say that this exists, but it's not really functioning to advance gender equity in any way.
I think, it's definitely a very interesting way to think of it, as like tied to the military. That makes a lot of sense, to be honest, since women are not, but of course this would be one factor or one reason. And as you said, Daniela, it's structural, cultural, social, all tied together. For example, another example that is in Egypt or in Cairo is that recently the constitution has been changed to have like a certain quota for women to be in the parliament, and also for other religious minorities, and that was like 25% or something like that, or 40 seats. I don't remember exactly, but it was still like a very small part or section, and it was the women there are barely allowed to do anything. And again, constitutionally, it's technically allowed for women to be a president, but in the long history of Egypt, since ancient Egyptians, we've only had like, yeah, queens back then, but no presidents or anything like that. So yeah, I've definitely long thought about this. A lot of it, as you have touched on, Daniela, is also the women themselves not given the opportunities to begin with, and this is why all organizations like yours are very important, and like other sectors and also NGOs that give the women opportunities to do what they want and to empower them, and then they can have their own voice and fight. So it's a chicken and egg kind of thing. Like, you don't know where it starts from, but it's definitely, I would say, definitely touchable in so many countries and similar as well.
I see that a couple people have joined us, so I want to open the floor for them to introduce themselves too. Is that Teresa?
Teresa.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Sorry for joining late.
That's okay. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Teresa, working from Ashoka, Portugal. I'm working here mainly with partnerships and fellowship. I've just also recently joined the executives in residence, and particularly for this call, I've worked for the past 2 years with a fellow organization working in gender programs. So happy to be here and listen.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have also Ashoka. Can't really see the rest of the word. But would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, they've left.
Oh, okay. Maybe not. Maybe I can open the mic to anyone who would like to address Daniela's question, just to Teresa, because I know you just joined. Daniela was talking about, like, just to very briefly say what she was talking about, how, like, even though in Bolivia, in her country, things have been really changing for women. For example, there with regards to women's rights, especially, for example, now there's a police force that is there against gender-based violence. These institutions have been led by men still, and she was wondering whether we have something similar. I think, Kim, you raised your hand. Sorry, do you have something?
Yeah, I think I can speak about Korea. So I think situation is very similar there too, and I can really relate to Daniela's story. What makes Korea really interesting in many social aspects is, we had a Korean War in 50s. So just like during that 70 years, we made a huge economic development, and it's now 11th largest economy in the world. And for the last several decades, all the presidents were elected in a very democratic process. So in terms of democracy, economy, people call it almost like a miracle. But when it comes to women's issue, the gender issue, let's put it as a gender issue, we still have a long way to go, along with so many other social aspects. So I rather, in a nutshell, I rather call Korea achieved economic development, but not social development. And it doesn't always go together, right? So to show you a very vivid snapshot of how rapidly the society, the country has changed, the culture has changed, like my grandparents' generation, polygamy was perfectly fine, especially if you're looking to have more sons, because there's a favoritism to make sure your family name, continues. Was perfectly even recommended by your family members, right? But then right now, and of course my grandmothers were okay with it. They didn't even think that there's something wrong about it because it was culturally accepted. But now my generation and the big society we're looking at is actually the number of female university entrants are larger than male entrants. So the workforce-wise, there are equally many female well-educated people out there. And then they realize, even though they have very good education and degrees, oftentimes they have to quit their job after, you know, like graduating and then finding a good job in a good companies because of this unbearable amount of housework, right? Because like, culturally, guys don't really help much. They still will see it as like, I'm helping you, instead of, you know, I am doing the housework as well with you. So, and as a result, because women now all want to have a job and therefore they have financial independence and their voice, they decide not to have a child, right? Because they realize getting married and having a child is almost like your life is trapped. So another shocking statistics that Korea's birth rate is 0.98, which is lowest in the whole world. Used to be Japan, but we beat them. Yay. So now what I am seeing with a very concerning eyes, after seeing all this dynamic changes, which gave me some sort of hope, because I don't expect any of my male friends like looking for a second wife or a third just because they don't have sons, right? It's unacceptable now. But because we are seeing so much like rise of women in a workplace, in a school, they are doing equally well, if not better sometimes in certain ways. There is a clash and a backlash coming from men's side. So we also have, just like Daniela's story, we have now a government which is all about women, gender equality, and a family issue. And basically a whole bunch of men sees it as their enemy. Why don't we have men's government of men equality or government of men welfare? Why there has to be only women thing? So now there is a huge divide, which is actually very concerning. All this like, systemic and government as structural support that the government is trying to put in, there is a huge backlash. And the government, of course, like administration has to look at their 50% of population, which is men, having such adverse, you know, like almost a rage against the unequal treatment towards them. So I can see now the system makers or government policymakers are like in a almost catch-22 situation. Like, what should we do, right? So my concern is, how can we navigate this? You know, I am totally supporting this rise of women and better and equal society, but how should we do that so that it doesn't divide the society? You know, it's not only about men and women issue as well. It can be like people with a handicap, people without handicap, right? And the world is designed in a way that people without handicap can live well, right? People don't think that there needs to be a ramp instead of just stairs, because we all can move freely. So we don't think from people without the accessibilities point of view. So not just about providing all the systems, structures, but how can we make people really accept that that's the way to go? And that way, their mothers will be actually happier, their daughters will be happier, their sisters will be happier, therefore the world will be happier. The 50% of population will be happier, for God's sake. How can we make that embraced by the 50% of population of the country is my question mark. Daniela, you're on mute.
Question.
I don't know if may I answer that. Thank you very much, Lexi. It was really a good input. It happens exactly the same here. Over here is, okay, now we have a law to protect women. We have now a whole structure to protect women. We have public institutions to advocate for women's rights. But yeah, the men complain, right? They say, hey, what's going on? Why there is not an institution to protect men. We are also weak. We are all suffering. We are also victims. I really do not have an answer to talk about the whole public structure, but I do have an answer from my position as a peace worker, as an activist. We work the issue of gender-based violence in schools, in the whole school communities, which has to do with, means the stakeholders are students, parents, professors, teachers, principals, and local leaders. And we work mainly with men, because if we work polarized only with women, and we empower them, and we give them information about their rights, and we provide some tools to advocate herself, or we provide all what they need to become better, or to be heard, to be educated, to access different positions. Then we are not working with the other 50%, as you mentioned. I don't know if we have 50% here in Bolivia, but we are not working with the other 50%. So men feel excluded. So how we work since very early childhood in our projects, as we work with men. We talk to the boys. We ask them, so what do you think about beating up a girl? And then they have this ownership of the problematic. They think, yeah, this problem of gender-based violence or gender against women has to do with us, boys or men. We work with parents, with fathers. We work with teachers, the male ones, because we try to involve them in this path to overcome gender inequality, but together. Not telling them, hey, stop beating up women or stop abusing women, but telling them there is this problem where our moms or our grandmas were beaten up badly. They couldn't study even though they wanted. Or we have, hey, you're a father and you have a girl. Do you want her to become a doctor, to become an engineer, to become whatever she wants? Do you want it? And they say yes. Okay, this starts with example. If you treat her mom just like the one who is making the domestic tasks at home, then your daughter, she will never dream about being a good practitioner or a good professional. So that's how we try to really, that's maybe the innovative element that Ashoka saw in my project, that we work gender-based violence mainly with men, because that's the element that we are missing. But going back to the structures, because we can work with the grassroots, we can work with the people, we can work with children, with families, with small regions, but when we want to go farther, and we have to face male structures, and we have to face a male CEO or a male policeman, then you can't do anything. Like, we lack a lot of education and awareness about the problem. But my question is, like, throwing back a question, because you were asking, how can we do stuff without dividing people, without splitting those that can and those that can't, those that are, well, women and men, handicapped, not handicapped. I guess the answer is in involving everyone, all the stakeholders, because there is never just two sides or two parties in a problem. But throwing back the question, what can we do when we are working with the grassroots? We are very solid there. We have our people that they are walking very well in this path to overcome gender inequality. But when you go to policemen, when you go to a big structure, institutional system, and you face a male and chauvinistic mindset, that's a little bit my question. And I feel powerless in this. Just yesterday, we had this meeting with a commission that is building up the new police station for women, only for women. And we were the only women, we were like 4 women, but the architect was man, the lawyer was man, the whole technicians, the whole team was man. And so how can they understand us if the structure is really chauvinistic? That's maybe my frustration, and I feel powerless about that. But I really would like to leave this huddle and thinking, wow, this can be done, or I can do this, or I can start with this. If you just give me a little hint to catch and just say, okay, I can do that, I will be very, very thankful.
Can I ask you a question, Daniela?
Sure.
So this police station is for women police workers, or to only solve problems?
Criminal cases against women. It has been created 6 years ago,
okay.
But it has been always led by men.
And does it work, or is it like a real potential case for actually even more dangerous place for women?
It's for femicides, it's for psychological abuse, it's for physical abuse. It's like they are in charge of investigating those the crimes against women. And we as civil society are part of a commission to foster and promote the creation of a new structure, like physical structure, for women to be attended. And we are already almost a year, but it's always the same meetings with same policemen talking about things they don't understand. And that's just one case, but it's just an example. So maybe you can, girls.
Daniela, can you influence them so that they can have like a mandatory quota of female officers sitting in that female police station?
Yeah, we do have, well, there is this law that I mentioned, that the positions are open, as you mentioned in Korea, the positions are open, but there are no qualified policewomen that can occupy these spots. And they argue that. I don't know if this is true, but they argue that.
So maybe it would be worth kind of similar to what we're envisioning with WISE at a large scale, is that bringing more of these qualified women, raising their visibility essentially. So maybe that's what you're hearing, but has there been any kind of mapping done? Are you aware of the actual numbers? Is there I don't know if that's an effort that's already been tried, like it's been attempted, or what is your thought?
That's a really great point. Well, this is not what we do as an institution, not what I do as an activist, but this is, for instance, a great point, like mapping qualified women, and maybe afterwards fostering them to access those positions. Well, if corruption wouldn't be an issue, maybe it would be easier. But that's that's for me one of the, at the tip for a solution. Thank you very much.
I think journalism also can play some role there. Like in Korea, I often read this newspaper saying a female, let's say a rape case happened, but then this female victim had to speak about her experience to a male officer, which is so uncomfortable. And even if it has been the case for a long time, now like people have different awareness. So when they read it in the newspaper, they're like, what the hell? How can you talk about your rape case to a man, right? Mm-hmm. So then there will be more and more voices around, we have to make sure, at least those people who will be working in these cases should be female, should go through certain trainings, right? So I think you like working with a journalist and like continuously raise that awareness and how in real life, even though people kind of know that has been the case, but if they read it in a newspaper and they sort of see how unfair and ridiculous these cases are, then maybe like using that accumulated voices, maybe you can try to influence more of the policy makers, like, look, for this, we need really more women working on these cases. You know, maybe we can even make it into a quota. I mean, slowly you can build up your narrative towards that.
Yeah.
That can be
I think that also two things I've seen worked well. Well, like Joanna, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, said, you know, once you map out, it's also about leadership, right? If you find both for men and women. So one is to find women with a high leader profile and potential that can become sort of a role model and somebody that, you know, people can follow. And, you know, this may seem pretty simple, but it's very effective. And for men, it works as well. I mean, men usually, and even from what you were saying, Garu, so there was a very interesting project in Mozambique where I worked before, that they were a men association fighting gender violence through men leaders that give training in sort of a rapport way. So what they would do, it was so kind of manipulating, but very interesting. They were men training other men in ways that they would kind of simulate the conversations that men have with women, and they would report the communication that they would use and the kind of expressions and the kind of body language in a way that it built a lot of empathy to the men receiving the training to actually understand it from their own perspective. I don't know if it's clear, but it was very simple. And a key thing was that it was actually men leading that. So it's finding your key players or your star men here that can feel a lot of empathy and understand the problematic very well. And although it's hard, it's also really important. And doing stuff like this, you know, like having honest conversations among them, and where they can, you know, kind of have this very specific sort of training where they can feel it themselves in a way. It's never going to be the same. But they had amazing results with just doing this. Just kind of replicating the same style of communication that men have with women to men, and they would be very reactive to that. And it's very interesting because, you know, building empathy to something that you will never feel is incredibly complicated, but it could be interesting. I can give you the name of the organization if you want to check them out. I'll write it here. And the men there are amazing to talk to, you know, they're very, very cool. And I mean, Mozambique has a pretty big issue with gender violence. Just 2 years ago, they changed the law for high school students to wear skirts up to their heels so they wouldn't get raped. So, yeah, just to give you an example of.
Thank you very much.
I think building off of that, I'd be curious, so whoever is responsible for recruiting people in the positions of leadership in this section you're talking about, and hiring any of the other officers there, you said that you at one point said someone said there are no qualified women leaders. So what are the qualities they see as important for these roles? And maybe there needs to be a discussion about that. You know, what is the guiding framework for this institution? What are the qualities that are believed to be important to address the issues they're addressing? And do those line up with those of the I don't want to use beneficiaries, but, you know, the people who are coming there and that they're interacting with? So on both ends, asking the questions on both ends, and journalism ties into that. It can be in the form of, you know, another part of a mapping of bringing these questions to light through the media in some way, or some kind of report where you're saying, okay, these are the qualities you think are important, but they don't seem to match up with what the actual people using this institution are expecting or seeking from here. So what can we do about that? And so making it more of a practical question.
I also have something to add to this, actually, Joanna, that also with regards to the criteria that they hire or what they find as qualified. I wonder if in Bolivia there are NGOs or organizations that work and focus particularly on women leadership and like empowering women to be confident and be a leader, and especially younger women, maybe different programs, maybe not like entire organizations. In this way, not that they will like fit the criteria set by men exactly, but they will definitely have like, they will feel more empowered and they will have like more confident to sort of, so to speak, force themselves to those positions without being stopped. So I wonder if this is something that can be done or has been done in different ways.
Well, in Bolivia, we do have some organizations that work with women empowerment, but not specifically fostering leadership. So if we have like women, they are leaders, and we have activists, they still feel they are not good enough. That's very hard. It's a reality for them. Well, I am very good at that, but I don't think I can reach this position because there are other men that are also good qualified. I don't know if they are shy, they are insecure, or it's just they fear the whole structure. I can tell you, I worked since 19 in court. Well, I stopped working when I was, I don't know, 22. And all judges, the most, like the top hierarchical positions were men. And secretaries, which are also lawyers, were females. And whenever I asked, so would you like to become a judge? No, I don't, like, it's okay if I stay here forever. That's perfect. I don't need it. I don't know. So, but that would be really, for me, another point to talk about, or to start promoting leadership for women, qualified women as well, young women that are on the path to start a career or to study something. Yeah.
So if I can, sorry, also add to that, it seems like I'm obsessed with this thing, but so the organization I actually worked with in Mozambique was a leadership academy for young women.
Oh.
So it's an Ashoka Fellow organization. You can check them out if you want to talk to them. I'll write it here as well. But basically, that's exactly the philosophy behind it. They would find, they recruit really high profile leadership talent in Mozambique. You know, like graduation rates for women are around 1% of the women population in Mozambique. So it's pretty niche. And they would find, you know, the recruitment process is key. They would really do a lot of workshops and development, like personal development workshops for them to really understand the potential for servant leadership and for you know, the career that they aspire to have. And they work exactly on that, on building women leaders that are equipped to fight against a system that doesn't include them, and you know, to do that also in a very kind of servant leadership style, which is also, you know, can also be very particular for women, giving the traditional roles that women have played, and so it works really well. And also, I was trying to find this to send you. So I think it's also important to think about, I mean, this transition from excluding women from decision-making roles and all of that to a world where that happens and where it's equal. It's a pretty hard transition, and it's, you know, it will take a while. I think I'll find it and I'll send it to you, kind of in envisioning this as a system. My video doesn't work because I'm doing a lot of gestures that would help, but anyways. In envisioning a system, right, you have the system where you're at right now, and you have the ideal system where you want to go, right? which would be a one where women and men are equal. And you kind of have to firstly, once you see these two, you design the transition system, you know? And this transition system is exactly the one that involves everything we were saying, you know? Training women leaders, mapping out who are the skilled women, providing confidence. What you were saying is really important, that the self-esteem part, it is devastating. And what Girl Move works really hard for 3 months in only personal development and self-esteem, because they're devastated. And as leaders, and they have so much potential, it's insane, but it breaks them apart. And so it's really interesting, just so you don't get too desperate, to think of it as a transitioning system that we are entering now, so you can get to that one. And it's not an immediate result, you know, it's something that's kind of in between, and we have to play with the old rules and with the new rules, and just, you know, be patient to build this critical mass of leaders, women, of qualified women, that will transition to this model where we're kind of equal. I know this is, I'll find this to send it to you, because it helps to visualize. But yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess it's a transition, but well, since I mentioned at the beginning that for me it's like almost 25 years that I've seen things changing towards gender equality. And we have a law launched in 2013. I feel frustrated because I don't see a lot of improvement. And that, but you're right, it is a transition. You're so right.
I don't want to take value out of your work and your experience. And I feel your frustration, I truly do.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think it's about time to wrap up, unfortunately. This hour went by so quickly, but it was very, very interesting. And it's really interesting to see how very similar experiences we have, despite the different cultures, from Portugal, Bolivia, South Korea, and Egypt. Those are very, very different cultures. But Daniela, when you were talking about the whole situation, I was like, yes, I can totally understand. I really feel that. It's insane. And so I just want to thank everyone for being here. And of course, Daniela, thank you so much for organizing and leading this huddle. I hope to see you all in the next one. Does anyone have any comments or any final sort of reflections?
I just wanted to say thank you. I think it's amazing to hear all of your experiences, indeed all across the world. I don't have a chance to say, so let me just put it in one sentence. I must say that in Romania the situation is similar, so I identify with all you're saying in fighting for women's rights. I mean, I think there's a pattern across the world, and I think it's really interesting. And yeah, I think I'm just amazed by how things are going across the world. I think it's been a really interesting hearing you. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And just final housekeeping things. The recording for the huddle will be posted on the ChangemakHERS platform, as well as also an article that sort of summarizes the main points that we talked about. So I will try to tag you all. Hopefully you will have already been signed up on it. So I'll try to tag you all to make sure you check it out. But yeah, thank you very much.
And just a quick note, like Salma said, this is really just meant, obviously, we can't cover everything. I'm able to just go over this. I have kind of a few area Teresa has done, shared different organizations that might be relevant, and models that are interesting to consider and look at. And yeah, thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela, for bringing this to the discussion.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. It was really a pleasure for me, and it was enriching, although I had to show my frustration, but it was enriching for me because I have written a lot about your thoughts and your inputs about ways to put a solution to this or to start changing it, and that's really good because I have different views from the whole world and from different positions, and that makes me so happy. I'm so glad you all took part of that, and thank you, Ayana and Salma, for organizing it, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniela, for your amazing work.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.